Look at this face, the face of a student overwhelmed with learning a high volume of content, knowing they'll need to demonstrate their knowledge gained in a formal evaluation. I do. My name is Charita. I'm a university instructor that typically teaches first year courses that are really content heavy. I've found formal evaluation results are not always what the students or I hoped for. A solution is to use informal assessment to get feedback on learning progression before formal evaluation takes place. That way, I can get information to take some corrective action. In this video, I will explain the memory matrix technique and my experience using it. I hope that sharing my experience will help you consider this technique or other ideas in your learning space that could help with similar issues. I know I said matrix, but this is not what I had in mind. Instead, we will be looking at a classroom assessment technique from a book that offers 50 different strategies. So this is number 5 of 50. There's something for everyone. The memory matrix involves a grid. And in this grid, you are going to provide the information in the columns and the rows, leaving the interior blank for students to fill out on their own. So here's a column and here is a row. So not only is there going to be information in each of these cells that will be recall based, students will also need to understand how the information intersects, how it relates to one another. You're also going to get incredible two-way feedback with this technique. There's some awesome advantages to using the memory matrix that I'll go through quickly. I mean, obviously, you're able to check learner progression on specific content and the relationships between that content. Due to this information, you're going to be able to make adjustments to your teaching strategies or clarify any sticky points. The learners are going to get feedback on their learning progress just by going through the activity, but also from your review of it, and get an opportunity to practice for more formal assessments down the line. This technique is really simple to set up as well as to operationalize in the classroom. It's flexible enough that you can offer it in individuals to take on or in groups, and it builds skills in a range of areas. It's going to increase memory, help with learning how to organize information, and even offer some new study skill ideas for ways to approach this. Students really appreciate that. It's beneficial for visual learners because, of course, the memory matrix is highly visual. There's some limitations to be aware of to determine if this informal assessment technique is right for you. Uh, Obviously, recall is limited to the interior items as you've already given the categories for them to work with. You really need to make certain that when you develop your matrix that there is no ambiguity for where different responses could be put. It's going to be difficult for you to know where knowledge came from, common knowledge, previous knowledge, or knowledge that was gained in your course. Also, did the students simply memorize what goes where, or do they understand it enough that they're applying their reasoning to figure it out, showing their understanding? It works best for lower cognitive levels of learning, so you're never really going to be able to use this effectively for anything application related or higher. And that's because this is a static technique. It's very simplistic, but I would say that you probably could undertake the technique and then use it as the foundation for a discussion that includes more complexity. Well, there's so many advantages to this method. Obviously, that's why I chose it, but it seemed like a good fit for my classes because they're content heavy. They tend to be at the lower level of Bloom's taxonomy, which this technique is best for. And I wasn't happy with the results I was getting in the formal assessment. So I'm hoping that using this technique will help better inform me and the learners about areas of confusion and facilitate discussions to clarify the topic. I chose to use it to compare the different categories of whiskey. I know, now you all want to be in my class, right? But I did put a little bit of a twist on it. And rather than just give the grid and allow students to freeform fill it out, I provided them with an envelope with all the possible responses. So all they had to do was see if they could put them in the right spaces. I also set the students up to work in groups to undertake this task. So what type of feedback did I give? Well, I started by observing for a few minutes, watching what was going on in the classroom, and then I started to engage with groups to offer encouragement, clues, on-the-spot help, and as I was going around, I was noting patterns. And when we reviewed the activity at the end of class, I was able to share those patterns. So not only was I able to correct and clarify on the spot, we had the opportunity to address what went well and where improvements could be made as a whole. I also put the activity online for individuals to use later, should they choose to. And that way they could do it without the aid of having the little envelope full of answers. What kind of feedback did I get? Well, outside of the obvious, I got feedback on learner progression on content, but I saw a lot of willingness to participate, energy, discussions, reasoning, helping each other. The results overall showed better understanding than I expected. I think my biggest takeaway, though, is I realized that not only was this informal assessment a great way to get two-way feedback and take corrective action, it was also an engagement technique. Students were actively engaging with content and with each other. And in this way, they were touching the content more than once in more than one manner. So I am very hopeful that I will see positive results in any final assessments. What would I do differently next time? Well, I actually liked giving the puzzle pieces for them to fill in, but I think I would consider adding an individual round, either immediately after the group round or in the following class. And when I do this individual round, I would think about whether I'd give the students the pieces to use or allow them to fill it in without that aid. The reason for this is ultimately students will be tested on this content individually. So using groups to help reason their way through won't entirely help them in an individual assessment. I thank you very much for watching. And I hope this has been helpful for you. Please, any comments or feedback you would like to provide me, I would appreciate it. Just please type it in below.